Mechanical forging of all dimensions and specifications. Price of meat, now represented in America by Lang & Associates. If your joints excruciate, ears sanguinate, or feet distend and tumefy, you have but one new and miraculous ointment to turn to. Montgomery's Pure Python Extract. The Boston Country Journal, your favorite penny sheet.
Dat is een varken. Dat is een hond. Dat is een hond. Hé, dat is nog een hond. Dat is een kat. Dat zijn schapen. Dat is een hond. Dat is een paard. Dat is een blad. Dat is een kip. Dat is een rat. Dat is een paard.
If I may, I was curious about your past with Braddock. You two clearly have a history.
Edward was one of us upon a time, and I considered him a close friend. He was brave and bold in ways few men are. But everything changed at the siege of Bergen-op-Zoom. We had lost the fortress to the French, and were in the midst of egress. There was a skiff hidden at the port with which we planned to make our escape. As we drew near, a young man and his family came upon us, begging for safe passage. I consented, but Edward refused. The young man called him Craven then. So Edward killed him and all the rest. Even the children. To this day, I don't know why. Was this the first time he'd struck out? Or had I simply never seen it before? Either way, things were never the same after that. We campaigned together a few more times, but each outing was more disturbing than the last. He killed. Enemy or ally, civilian or soldier, guilty or innocent. It mattered not. If he perceived one to be an obstacle, they died. He maintained that violence was a more efficient solution. It became his mantra. And it broke my heart.
I had no idea.
He hides it well, and intimidates into silence any who discover him. Those who persist have a tendency to find misfortune.
And we should stop him.
I suppose you're right. But I maintain a foolish hope that he might yet be saved and brought back round to reason. I know. It's a silly thing to believe that one so drenched in death might suddenly change.
I'm sorry to have brought this up. It was not my intent to sour you.
Nonsense. We are brothers now. There should be no secrets between us.
Bergen op Zomers in Nederland.
So, a question for you. Why medicine?
I'm supposed to tell you I care for my fellow man, right? That I chose this path because it allows me to accomplish a greater good.
Are these things not true?
Perhaps. But that's not what guided me, no. For me, it was a less abstract thing. I like money.
There are other paths to fortune.
But what better ware to peddle than life? Nothing else is as precious nor so desperately craved. And no price is too great for the man or woman who fears an abrupt and permanent end.
Your words are cruel, Benjamin.
But true as well.
You took an oath to help people, did you not?
I abide the oath, which makes no mention of price. I merely require compensation. Fair compensation. For my services.
And if they lack the required funds?
Then there are others who will serve them. Does a baker grant free bread to a beggar? Does the tailor offer a dress to the woman who cannot afford to pay? No. Why should I?
You said it yourself. Nothing is more precious than life.
Indeed. All the more reason one should ensure they have the means to preserve it.
Daar ben ik het wel mee eens.
I've some ledgers to review. Do you mind if we speak later? Sorry, Hatham, but I'm in the midst of something.
I hope you and the General find a way to patch things up. Don't let me keep you, sir. I'm sure you have more important things to do.
Charles Lee was a British soldier who went on to be a major figure in the Revolutionary War. Lee's father was a colonel in the British Army and started his son off in a military career early. He was sent to a military academy in Switzerland during his formative years, and then in 1764 Lee became an ensign in his father's regiment. Lee was sent to the colonies in 1755 to fight back in the French and Indian War. He served under Edward Braddock and then later at Fort Ticonderoga, where he was injured in the fighting. He recovered and later fought at Fort Niagara. I'd always thought there was a lot of fort fights fought. He finished his time in colonies with the British conquest of Montreal. Lee returned to England in 1760, possibly because he was seeking career advancement. He was named a major in 1761 and was sent to fight the Spanish in Portugal. Though his service record there was good, Lee didn't receive praise on his return home. In fact, he was retired from the army at half pay. After that, Lee became a vocal critic of military higher-ups and the British Prime Minister and thought that his military... And the British Prime Minister and the British Prime Minister and found after that, Lee became a vocal critic of military higher-ups and the British Prime Minister and found that his military career had inexplicably completely stalled. Benjamin Franklin was a renowned inventor, diplomat, and one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. Translation: he was a rock star of the age. He was a rock star of the age. Benjamin Franklin was born in Boston in 1706. The 10th son of a soap maker. 10 sons. I guess his parents couldn't afford a television, and also, there was no television. He began working for his brother in 1718 as an apprentice printer. However, their relationship was rocky, particularly after the elder Franklin found out that young Benjamin had been writing for the paper under a pseudonym, Silence Do Good, and writing an extremely popular column that, human nature being what it is, the fact that the column was popular was probably the bigger problem. Benjamin ran away in 1723 and headed for Philadelphia, where he continued his career in printing and writing, eventually buying the Pennsylvania Gazette. Pennsylvania Gazette. The business, I mean, not just a copy. That would have been one of his lesser achievements. He stayed in Philadelphia. He stayed in Philadelphia for most of his life. That is, when he wasn't making extended trips to Europe. Franklin had a talent for persuasion, and that made him an ideal diplomat. In 1775, he went to London to represent Pennsylvania in an ongoing legal battle with the Penn family. It was the first of several extended political trips to Britain, and he would act as the state representative of Massachusetts, Georgia, and New Jersey as well. In fact, Franklin was in Europe for most of the Revolution, though he was in the columns to help with the writing of the Declaration of Independence. Franklin was a vocal opponent of British impositions on the colonies like the Stamp Act. And although he first fought for the rights of colonists, as British citizens he eventually became convinced, like many of the founding fathers, that independence was the only real solution. Unfortunately, Franklin's change of heart made him clash with his son, William, who served as the royal governor of New Jersey. William remained an active loyalist. The father and son never spoke again. When he wasn't founding a new nation and destroying his family in the process, Franklin was a scientist, inventing things like bifocals and more efficient wood stoves when he wasn't mapping the Gulf Stream and discovering how electricity worked. What have you done today? Made yourself a microwave meal and sat about in your underwear? Oh, well done you. He was also quite the lady killer. Jesus, this guy. Carrying on several friendships with a woman while he was in Europe. Jesus, this guy. Carrying on several friendships with women while he was in Europe. The records don't say what exactly they saw in him. They certainly not his looks. Maybe a woman like a man who's intelligent. If that was true, I wouldn't be here. I'd be in Portugal, surrounded by them. And you'd be looking at a blank screen. William Johnson. William Johnson was a land speculator and Britain's principal treaty negotiator with the indigenous peoples in the northern part of the colonies, particularly the Iroquois. Johnson was born in Ireland, but moved to the colonies in 1738 to look after his uncle's property on the Mohawk River. However, it wasn't long before Johnson branched out into business for himself, acquire property on the opposite side of the river, and setting up a sawmill and trading post, which he named Mount Johnson. Which to me always sounds like mating instructions from a caveman. In 1743, he moved to an even larger parcel of land, which he named Fort Johnson. He may have been an excellent businessman, but it's possible he lacked an imagination. Johnson befriended the indigenous peoples in the area, particularly the Canaan Kihaka, whose language he learned. His respect for their customs helped him rise to prominence as liaison between the Iroquois people and the British government. Johnson was named Superintendent In Johnson was named Superintendent of Indian Affairs in 1765. As a contact who knows the land and its people, he's probably the best you'll find. John Pitcairn. In 1754, John Pitcairn was a young captain in the British Marine Corps. He fought in the French and Indian War, but I can't find much about his postings. He listed as being on the HMS Lancaster during the capture of Louisbourg. That's in Canada. No record of him being on the American side of the colonies. But it seems he did some covert work as well. That would explain the lack of details. Pitcairn was promoted to major in 1771, and he gained a reputation for being well liked by subordinates and praised by his enemies. That's a difficult trick to pull off. Maybe he had a lovely smile.